Okay, so picture the scene. It is December 43 BCE,
Right.
and it is cold. The Roman Republic, which is, this massive chaotic experiment in law and liberty, it's effectively collapsing in real time. It is
Yeah.
absolute chaos out there.
Complete breakdown of order.
Exactly. You've got the Second Triumvirate, which is honestly just a fancy name for a military junta led by Mark Antony and Octavian, and they are actively purging their enemies. They're
Yeah.
making lists.
Yeah, the prescription list.
Right, and at the very top of that hit list is one very prominent name.
Marcus Tullius Cicero.
The big guy, Rome's greatest orator, the man who basically used words as weapons for decades.
Yeah.
But now, he's 73 years old, he's exhausted, the armies are closing in, and the words they aren't working anymore.
No, they aren't. It is the end of an era, quite literally.
And that is exactly where we find ourselves today for this deep dive. We are looking at a text that I honestly found kind of heartbreaking. It's called De Finali LUCE, or On the Final Light.
It's a fascinating document.
It really is. Now, before we really get into it, I have to ask, because this is presented as a lost dialogue of Cicero's final days. Is it real? Or are we looking at some kind of historical fan fiction here?
That is always the first question, isn't it? The provenance is, well, it's complicated. Some scholars think it's a genuine lost fragment that just finally resurfaced. Others are totally convinced it's a later forgery.
Like someone pretending to be him.
Yeah, maybe a student of Stoicism trying to imagine how the master met his end.
So we might just be analyzing a fake.
We might be. But here's the thing, and the editors of the text make this exact point too. Does it actually matter?
I mean, I guess it depends on what we're reading it for.
Right, because whether Cicero literally scratched this out on papyrus himself or someone else wrote it to capture his spirit, the text serves as this incredible masterclass in dying.
That's a good point.
It asks a question that is intensely relevant, whether you're a Roman senator running for your life or just a modern person dealing with a crisis. How do you maintain your integrity when your entire world is falling apart?
Yeah, if the advice is that good, I guess I don't really care whose signature is at the bottom of the page. So let's unpack this setup. We're at Cicero's villa in Tusculum.
Beautiful estate.
Right, it's this gorgeous place with gardens and olive groves, but the vibe is just awful. It's incredibly tense. Cicero is sitting in his library, supposedly trying to read Plato, and in walks this young guy, Atticus Minor.
Atticus Minor, the nephew of his best friend. And in this scenario, Atticus Minor is basically us.
The audience.
Exactly. He represents the panic that any normal person would feel. He's pacing, he's sweating. He brings the central conflict right into the quiet of the library.
He's the reality check.
He is. He looks at this old man reading a philosophy book and essentially screams, "Why aren't we running?" They say, "Your name is on the list."
And Cicero's just sitting there.
He's trying to. He's trying to find that philosophical calm in the storm. And Atticus asks the big question that kicks off the whole first segment of the discussion. He says, what should one do when all appears lost?
Wow. That is the heavy hitter. I mean, what do you even say to that? Just don't worry about it.
Cicero doesn't say don't worry. He fully acknowledges the danger. But he tells this panicked kid to just look out the window at the garden. He points out that the sun still rises, the wheat still grows,
Okay.
and he starts drawing a really sharp distinction between two different orders of reality.
Okay, walk me through this. Because to me, if literal soldiers are coming to kill me, the fact that the wheat is growing feels pretty irrelevant.
It definitely seems that way in the moment. But Cicero talks about the political order versus the natural order.
Got it.
The political order is the Senate, the laws, the courts, all the titles. And Cicero admits, and you have to understand this is painful for him because he dedicated his entire life to it, he admits that this order is fragile.
Because humans made it.
Exactly. It's made by humans, so humans can smash it. And in 43 BCE, Mark Antony is smashing it to pieces.
So the political order is basically everything we stress about when we watch the news. Who's in charge, what the tax laws are, the economy.
Precisely. It's a real thing, but it's inherently unstable. But then you have the natural order, virtue, truth, reason, mathematics.
Underlying rules.
Right. Cicero argues these things exist completely independent of whether humans recognize them or not. He uses a math analogy here that I think is the key to understanding his whole mindset in this crisis.
Is this the 2 + 2 thing?
Yes. He tells Atticus 2 plus 2 equals 4, even if the entire Senate votes that it equals 5.
Oh, wow.
Even if Mark Antony puts a sword to your throat and demands that it equals 5, it doesn't change the truth.
So justice is still justice, even if the bad guys win and rewrite all the laws.
That's his anchor.
Yeah.
He's trying to tell Atticus that while they can destroy the Republic, they cannot alter the fundamental nature of virtue. They can kill the philosopher, but they can't kill the philosophy.
Okay, I get that in theory. It sounds great on paper, but Atticus pushes back on this, right?
Yeah.
He's basically like, that's awesome, Cicero, but if everyone who knows what justice means gets their head cut off, what is the actual point?
He does push back.
And this leads to that analogy about the archer. I have to admit, I had to read this specific part of the text twice to really grasp it. Can you break that down for us?
Sure, it's a classic Stoic concept, but Cicero gives it a very personal twist here. Imagine an archer firing at a target. Obviously, the goal is to hit the bullseye. Now, suppose you miss.
Okay, I shoot the arrow and I miss.
Does it matter if you miss by 1 inch or if you turn completely around and fire the arrow into the dirt behind you?
I mean, yeah, missing by an inch is way better. It shows I'm skilled. It shows I was at least close to the goal.
In the practical real world, sure. But in the strict Stoic view of virtue, no, you hit the target or you didn't.
It's just binary.
Completely binary. There is no such thing as being almost virtuous. And this realization is what is tearing Cicero apart inside.
Wait, so he's not just teaching a little philosophy lesson here. He's actually talking about himself.
He is grappling with his own life story in real time. Look at his career. He spent 40 years making political deals, compromising, allying with Pompey, then flattering Caesar, then attacking Antony.
Playing the game.
Right. He was always maneuvering, always trying to save the Republic by being clever. He was aiming for the bullseye, which was a free Rome.
And Rome is falling.
Rome is falling. So he's looking back at his entire life and asking, did I just miss by an inch? Or was this whole career a complete waste?
That is wow.
Because if the final result is the same tyranny, then all his cleverness, all his brilliant speeches, all his compromises, they amount to absolutely nothing. He's terrified that he spent his life playing a game he was destined to lose.
That is just bleak. He's wondering if he should have just been an uncompromising hardliner from day one instead of a politician.
He's wondering if he valued success, meaning hitting the target, more than he valued the process of just shooting straight. Because the Stoics say you can only control the aiming, not the hitting.
Because outside factors.
Exactly. The wind might take the arrow. The target might move. Cicero is realizing he spent way too much time worrying about where the arrow landed, and now, at the very end of his life, he has to reckon with that.
So he's basically having a massive midlife crisis, but at the actual end of his life. Just wondering, did I do this all wrong?
Effectively, yes. And that existential crisis pushes the conversation away from politics entirely.
Right, because by book 4, they stop talking about how to save the state.
It's too late for the state.
Yeah. They start talking about the only thing left on the table, which is death. And this is where the text gets really wild to me, because usually you think of death as just lights out, end of story. But Cicero refuses to see it as something that simple. He treats death like a logic puzzle.
He does. He approaches it exactly like a master lawyer preparing a case. He says we don't actually know what death is, so we have to examine the possibilities. He lays out what he calls the 3 doors.
Okay, let's go through these doors, because I feel like most people just have one view of what happens, but he's holding 3 totally different realities in his head at once. Let's start with door number 1, annihilation.
This is the Epicurean view. The lamp runs out of oil, the flame is gone.
Total blackness.
Not even blackness, just nothingness. Cicero argues that if this is the ultimate truth, it logically cannot be feared.
Because you aren't there to care.
Exactly. You weren't there to be bored. You weren't there to be in pain. It's just like the year 1800. You weren't born yet, and it didn't bother you.
I've always found that argument a little cold, honestly. Like, sure, it won't hurt because I won't be there, but I like being here.
It is a cold comfort. But for a man who is actively facing the threat of torture or execution, nothingness is actually a profound form of sanctuary. It's a guaranteed end to suffering.
That is very true. Okay, so that's door 1. Then we have door number 2, persistence.
Right, the Platonic view. The idea that the soul is immortal. Life on earth is just one brief chapter, or maybe even a prison for the soul. If this is true, then death is just a release.
But there's a catch with this one.
A huge catch. If the soul persists, then its health matters.
And the health of the soul is defined by its virtue, right?
Exactly. If you act like a coward now, if you betray your friends just to save your own skin, you are actively damaging your soul. And if your soul is eternal, you have to live with that damage forever.
Oh, man.
So if door 2 is the real reality, you have a massive eternal incentive to die with dignity.
Okay, so under door 1, it doesn't really matter how you die. Under door 2, it matters a lot. Then we get to door number 3, which was honestly my absolute favorite part of this entire text. Transformation.
The mystery. This is where Cicero uses that incredible analogy of the womb.
I love this so much. Break it down for everyone listening.
He asks Atticus to imagine a baby still in the womb. For that unborn baby, the womb is the entire universe. It's warm, it's dark, it's safe. It's all they know. Now imagine trying to tell that baby that very soon it will be forcefully squeezed out into a place with blinding light, freezing air, and incredibly loud noises.
To the baby, that sounds exactly like death.
It sounds like the apocalypse. The baby cannot physically conceive of breathing air. It cannot imagine seeing color. If you somehow explain life to that baby, it would sound like a terrifying, violent end to its existence.
But we know it's the opposite.
Right. We know that birth isn't an end at all. It's a transition to a much grander, vastly larger reality.
And Cicero thinks death might be the exact same thing.
He speculates that we are the baby. We are trapped in this tiny womb of the physical world, and we mistakenly think this is everything there is. But death might just be the birth canal into something we simply lack the hardware to understand right now.
That is such an incredibly hopeful image, especially when you consider he's 73 and the death squads are literally on their way.
It is deeply hopeful. But here is the kicker, and this is where Cicero really proves he's a master philosopher. After laying all this out, he concludes that it actually doesn't matter which of the 3 Joes is the real one.
Wait, hold on. It definitely matters. If I'm going to disappear into nothingness, I might want to eat a lot of rich food and run away.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be an eternal spirit, I need to be good. How does it not matter?
Because Cicero says the specific instruction for how you should live right now in this exact moment is identical in all 3 scenarios.
How so?
Think about it. If it's annihilation, you want to leave a good memory behind and die without the humiliation of fear.
Okay. Yep.
If it's persistence, you need to keep your eternal soul clean. And if it's transformation, you need to be strong and ready for that next stage of existence.
Wow.
In every single version of reality, the rational, virtuous choice is to stand your ground and maintain your integrity. Panic helps in none of them. Cowardice pays off in none of them.
So philosophy isn't really about predicting the future at all. It's just a tool for navigating the present. You do the right thing regardless of what comes next.
Exactly. You only control the input. The output is entirely up to the universe.
So they're having this really high-level talk, and you get the sense they're feeling a bit better about things, and boom, reality literally crashes the party. Book 5. There is a knock at the door.
Enter Gaius Trebonius.
And this guy isn't just some random messenger off the street.
No, Trebonius was one of the core conspirators. He was literally one of the men holding the knives on the Ides of March when they assassinated Julius Caesar.
A major player.
Very major. But now he is a man on the run, and he brings something very, very dangerous into the villa. He brings hope.
Because he has a boat, right?
He has a boat, he has a crew, and he has a plan. He looks at Cicero and says, "Come with me right now. We can make it to Greece. We can join the remaining Republican armies there. We can fight back."
This is the ultimate practical test. I mean, it's really easy to sit in your library and talk about being a Stoic when you're trapped, but suddenly there's a real, tangible exit sign. Why doesn't Cicero take it? Everyone else was telling him to run.
This exchange is just fascinating because Trebonius is so desperate. And in that desperation, he admits to Cicero that he has deep regrets about the assassination. He says something incredibly profound. He says, "We killed the tyrant, but we did not kill the tyranny."
Wait, let's pause on that for a second. They killed Caesar. The bad guy was dead on a marble floor. Why didn't that fix the problem for Rome?
Because they treated the symptom, not the underlying disease. Trebonius realizes that by killing the dictator outside the bounds of the law, they didn't restore the law. They just created a massive power vacuum that immediately invited new dictators, Antony and Octavian.
Oh, I see.
They used extrajudicial violence to try and stop violence, and all they got was much more violence. The tyranny they were fighting wasn't just a single person, it was the entire breakdown of the institutional system.
So Trebonius is basically looking for a do-over. He wants Cicero to come to Greece, rally the troops, and fix it with his famous speeches.
Yes, and Cicero refuses. But you have to listen to why he refuses. It's not because he's suicidal or just given up. It's because he completely rejects cleverness.
That specific phrase really stuck out to me in the text. Cleverness has failed.
It's a huge realization. He looks at Trebonius, a man who honestly thought he could fix the entire Roman Republic with a single knife, and then he looks at himself, a man who thought he could fix it with a clever speech.
And they both failed.
They both failed because they were both trying to manipulate outcomes, they were trying to be smart, and in that moment, Cicero decides that he is completely done calculating the odds.
He's stepping off the board.
Exactly. He basically tells Trebonius, I am done running, I am done scheming, I am just going to stand right here and be morally consistent.
That really feels like the big turning point of the whole text. He's moving from being a politician, someone who always has a plan B in their back pocket, to being a true philosopher who only ever has plan A.
Yes, beautifully put. He realizes that getting on that boat is just another desperate attempt to aim the arrow. And he wants to stop aiming, he just wants to be...
So Trebonius leaves. The boat sails without him. And now Cicero has to really commit to this. In Book 6, he walks Atticus Minor through what I'm calling the decision matrix. And honestly, this is a practical tool that I think you could use next time you have a really tough choice in your own life.
It's a brilliant mental hack, because usually we make decisions based almost entirely on how we feel right now in the present moment. Like, I'm scared, so I'll run, or I'm hungry, so I'll eat.
Right. It's an immediate feedback loop.
Cicero completely flips that. He plays the movie forward to the very end of his life. He vividly imagines the entire narrative arc of two very different futures.
Okay, let's play them out here. Future 1. He gets on the boat with Trebonius.
Right, so he flees to Greece, he survives the purge, he lives the rest of his life in exile, he's safe, he's relatively comfortable, he probably writes a few more philosophical books that the people back in Rome aren't even allowed to read. And eventually, years down the line, he dies in his bed of old age.
I have to be completely honest here. That sounds pretty good to me. Survival is nice.
On the surface, absolutely. But Cicero calls this surviving but not living.
Because of what it costs him.
Yes. He realizes that if he does this, he teaches the whole world and himself that his philosophy was never real. It was just an intellectual hobby. That when the chips were finally down, he chose physical safety over his stated principles. He would have to live 10 more years feeling like an absolute fraud.
He'd be safe from Antony, but he'd despise himself.
Okay, what about future 2?
He stays at the villa. He faces the soldiers when they arrive. He dies violently. It's painful, it's terrifying, and it's undeniably messy. But he dies whole.
Whole. That's the specific word he keeps coming back to again and again.
Yes, because in Future 2, he finally bridges the gap between his words and his actions. He realizes that the lingering regret of Future 1, that slow daily burn of shame, is actually far worse than the sharp temporary physical pain of Future 2.
So the scary choice is actually the easier choice if you zoom out and look at the whole timeline. Precisely. And once he sees it from that perspective, the decision is made. And this leads to his powerful redefinition of courage. And I love this part because he freely admits that he is terrified.
Yeah, he's not pretending to be Superman here. He looks right at Atticus and says, I am not brave. I am afraid.
He redefines courage not as the absence of fear, because fear is a natural reflex, but as the conscious choice to value your integrity over the animal desire to just survive.
Mind over matter.
The animal part of his brain is screaming at him to run into the woods. The rational part is saying, stay and be whole. Courage is just listening to the rational part, even while your hands are physically shaking.
And speaking of shaking hands, that brings us to the end. Book 7. The actual format of the book changes here, right? It just abruptly stops being a dialogue.
It does. Atticus must have finally fled, or maybe he just stopped taking dictation. The text shifts to these fragmented thoughts, little scraps of notes. It reads like a personal journal he's scratching out while he sits alone, waiting to hear the sound of boots on the gravel outside.
This is where it gets so visceral for me. He writes, my hands shake. My mouth is dry. It's just so incredibly raw.
It completely demythologizes him. He isn't some cold marble statue in a museum. He's a frightened old man sitting in an empty house.
But he keeps writing. Why does he do that? If I knew I was about to be executed in an hour, I really don't think I'd be taking philosophical notes.
He actually answers that in the fragments. He says the physical act of writing is his way of being fully human until the very last second. Writing is how he imposes order on his own mind.
Oh, that makes sense.
If he stops writing, he feels he'll just regress into a panicked animal waiting for the slaughter. But as long as he is holding that pen and writing, he remains a rational being actively analyzing his own death.
It's a pure act of defiance. Like, you can kill me, but you can't make me stop thinking.
Exactly. It's the ultimate form of control when you have lost control over everything else. And then the notes just end abruptly. The very last lines of the text say, "The light is fading. I hear sounds on the road."
Chills, literal chills when I read that. I hear sounds on the road.
And his final written intent right before it cuts off is so powerful. He writes that he wants to face the soldiers not as a helpless victim being caught, but as a moral agent who deliberately chose to sit there and wait for them.
There's a huge, huge difference there.
Massive difference. One is passive, one is incredibly active. He reclaimed ownership of his own death.
And we know, historically speaking, that is pretty much exactly what happened. December 7th, 43 BCE. The soldiers finally caught up with his litter. He didn't run. He reportedly stretched his neck out and calmly told them to strike properly.
He didn't fight back. He accepted the outcome of his choice.
It's a really heavy ending. But there's one last idea I want to touch on before we wrap up today. It's something Cicero mentions a bit earlier in the text when he talks about the universal city of reason. It really feels like the ultimate takeaway he wants us to have.
It's a beautiful, enduring concept. Cicero realizes that Rome, his beloved physical city, is gone. The republic he gave his life to is dead. But he claims citizenship in a completely different kind of city.
The city of reason.
Right. The cosmopolis. He argues that we are all essentially dual citizens. We are citizens of our physical countries, whether that's America, France, or Rome, and those countries can be corrupted or fail. But we are also citizens of this universal community of human beings who have the capacity to think and reason.
So even if your country collapses, or your company goes bankrupt, or your personal life completely falls apart, you're still a citizen of that second indestructible city.
And that specific citizenship comes with permanent duties. You still have an obligation to truth, to kindness, to integrity. That citizenship cannot be revoked by a dictator or a firing squad or a bad economy. It is entirely internal.
I really love that. It means you always have a job to do. Even if the world outside your window is literally burning down, your job is to just be a decent, rational human being.
That is the ultimate challenge Cicero leaves us with. You might not be able to save the Republic. You might not even be able to save your own life. But you can always, always save your humanity.
Well, that is certainly a lot to process. But it's also strangely empowering. It's all about taking absolute control of the one thing you actually own, which is your response to the world.
It is the ultimate freedom.
I think I'm definitely going to use that two narratives trick we talked about. Play the movie forward, see which version of yourself you actually want to be at the end of the day.
It's a highly clarifying habit to get into.
Thank you so much for walking us through this deep dive. It was intense, but I think I really needed to hear it.
My pleasure. It's definitely a text worth returning to whenever things get tough.
And to everyone listening out there, if you are hearing your own version of sounds on the road today, or even if you're just dealing with a particularly stressful email inbox, remember the lesson from Tusculum. You still have a choice in how you respond. If your institutions fail, you are still a citizen of reason. Thanks for taking this journey with us. We'll see you in the next deep dive.